evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock on a Sunday evening, and as I said before, I'll say again, there's no better place to be than one, and that is when we all get to heaven. Amen? Amen. I hope that you are doing wonderful today. It's a beautiful evening. God has truly blessed us with beautiful weather, the right amount of rain for most everybody. Still need some here and there, but for the most part, we've been blessed with a lot of rain, and hopefully everything will be a great spring and summer. How you doing? I hope that you're doing well. Tonight we are going to continue our study in Psalms 119. We're on lesson 3, and the verses that we're going to be looking at is from 119 verse 17 through 24, and we're on the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and I'm going to try to pronounce this. I probably will get it wrong, so I apologize, but it's Gamil, and again, it's the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which means both the giving of reward as well as giving of punishment. So we'll keep that in mind as we read verses 17 through 24, and we'll discuss it and try to picture either a reward or punishment, or maybe even both, because each of these words or letters means something, and the verses that's contained, the 8 verses that's contained in the section is supposed to deal with what it means. So starting with verse 17, I'll be reading from the New American Standard. It says, "Deal generously with your servant, that I may live and keep your word. Open my eyes that I may behold wonderful things from your law. I am a stranger on the earth. Do not hide your commandments from me. My soul is crushed with longing for your ordinances at all times. You rebuke the arrogant, the cursed, who wander from your commandments. Take disgrace and contempt away from me, for I comply with your testimonies. Even though rulers sit and speak against me, your servant meditates on your statutes. Your testimonies also are my delight. They are my advisors." So you can see right off that it does contain a little bit of both the blessing and the curse. The psalmist pleads with God to deal with or be generous with his servant. We, being children of God, should plead to God in taking care of our needs. In Proverbs 30 verse 7, Solomon writes, "2 things I have asked of you. Do not refuse me before I die. Keep deception and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food that is my portion, so that I will not be fooled and deny you and say, 'Who is the Lord?' And that I will not become impoverished and steal and profane the name of my God." Have you ever been in a situation where you think that you're just not going to make it? Oh, sure, we've probably been there, haven't we? We've probably been in situations where we just feel like we just can't handle anything else, and yet somehow we make it through. And we might not ever have an abundance, but somehow God gives us what we need. He always takes care of us. And here the proverb writer is asking God to take care of him. Do not refuse me before I die. In other words, take care of me. 2 things. One is very important. Keep deception and lies far from me. Don't make me to be a deceiver, and don't make me tell lies. Or you could think of it as him not being deceived and not being lied to. Could be that. But I kind of think that it's the writer trying to keep himself honest. He doesn't want to deceive anybody. He doesn't want to be known as a liar. And along with that, he wants God to give him just what he needs. If you're poor, and we have had this happen in our society, we may even know someone that's done this. If you're so poor and broke that you literally have nothing and there's nowhere to fall back on, you may steal just to survive. And we've probably, like I say, known people that's done this. Certainly we've seen or heard of instances like this from various people, or maybe even in the news. Person down on their luck, the family is out of their house, they have no place to go, they're living out of their car, they're down to the last little bit of gas in their car, and they're hungry. And so they go into a store and they try to get away with whatever they can stuff in their pockets. And we hear people say, well, I understand that. They got to eat, and I agree. But you see, the proverb writer says that if I become so impoverished, I'll profane your name. I will be bad. I will be, here I am trying to say God's going to take care of me, and I'm making God out to be a liar. Or we have it too good. And we say, who is God? Who is He? Who is He that I should even need Him? Now the writer says, God, you just give me what I need. You just give me what I need to make it day by day. As a child of God, we should be eternally grateful and rejoice in what God has given to us and for us. Just to ask Him for what we need to survive on. I think too many times inadvertently we fail to be grateful for our blessings. We look around at our neighbors and maybe and see maybe a nicer, bigger home, a bigger, nicer car, someone wearing fancier clothes than us. Maybe they have a career that allows them to just travel anytime and just go to the store and just buy whatever they want and do whatever they want whenever they want. And here we are, we're on a budget, counting pennies, so to speak. And we may be ungrateful of what we have, and we may covet, but we shouldn't. We shouldn't covet. We should be thinking about God and what God has done for us. Along with that, we need to ask God to open our eyes. Ask God to give us understanding of His laws. The wondrous things from His laws is peace that surpasses all understanding, Philippians 4:7. To be able to trust in Him to supply our needs by giving our means and to help those around us. That's something, isn't it? Not only are we to be thankful for God to give us what we need, but when He gives us what we need, we in turn need to give to those that's around us. So in turn, He is actually supplying their needs. Paul in 2 Corinthians 8 verses 1 through 4 says, Now brothers and sisters, we make known to you the grace of God which has been given in the churches of Macedonia, that in a great ordeal of affliction their abundance of joy and their deep poverty overflowed in the wealth of their liberality. For I testified that according to their ability and beyond their ability they gave voluntarily, begging us with much urging for the favor of participation in the support of the saints. And this is not what we had expected. But they first gave themselves to the Lord and to us by the will of God. Paul says here in writing to the Corinthians as they was going through on their missionary journeys, Jerusalem and all of Judea became impoverished with a great famine. And they was raising funds to buy food and things like that so that they could be able to survive. And they was asking different congregations to give, and everyone was pledging. And here they came upon a place in Macedonia that they just knew wouldn't be able to do anything because of their poverty. But they were surprised. The Christians there in the area where they was at begged the apostles to let them help. They begged and pleaded with Paul, saying, we're going to give. And they're like, I don't see how you're going to. But they said, we're going to. And they did first by giving of themselves. They gave themselves to God and His work and resigned to the fact that they was going to raise money and give that money to the church in Jerusalem. And Paul says they did. They were surprised. When we realize God's bountiful blessings on this, we will trust Him to supply our needs. Kind of brings back the thinking about the widow with the 2 mites. You know, the 2 little copper coins that amounted to a cent. And as Jesus was and his disciples was in the temple and he was watching or observing the giving of the people to the treasury, he knows that they were giving large amounts of money. And the way we read it, the way we kind of understand it, they was doing it for show. They was just doing it just to make a scene. And here comes this little widow woman. And she drops her last 2 copper coins into the treasury. No one made a sound when she went up there. She might not have even been noticed. Certainly she wasn't noticed by the rich, unless it was to be made fun of. But I doubt if they even noticed her for that. But Jesus noticed it. His disciples didn't, but Jesus did, and He called their attention and said, did you see what she did? She gave all she had. You know, when we give to God, you know what we are saying to Him? God doesn't, we're not saying, God, you need my money. God doesn't really need our money. But when we give to Him, we are saying that we trust Him to supply our needs. We may be down and out, but if we give to God, we are saying, God, I trust you to supply my needs. And so Paul here in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, 1 through 4, tells the Corinthians that they came across a place that was just that way. They trusted in God, and they was begging to participate in the support of the saints, and they did. By first giving themselves to the Lord and to the apostles, or to Paul and those who were with him by the will of God. Something that we need to do. We also need to be looking for God's commandments while being a stranger on earth. We need to consider ourselves a stranger on earth. I think we used to sing a song saying, just a wayward pilgrim. We're just passing through. We're not here forever. In fact, we do sing a song saying, I can't feel at home anymore. It was wrote by Carter in 1931. It's just a passing through. This world is not my home. We are not here forever. No one that has been born lives forever. And the only one who does, or who is living forever now, is Jesus. Everyone else is going to die. Everyone else is going to pass away, and the sands of time is going to cover up whatever work or works we may have done. That's what's so fascinating about archaeology. They dig down and they find remnants of a civilization, and they start uncovering it, and lo and behold, they find a civilization, and sometimes it's a civilization that they have no idea who it is. They may have a language that is wrote, but we may not understand it. It took a long time to understand the cuneiform language of the Seminites, or the Canaanites, if you will, the Sumerians. We are just now beginning to scratch the surface of the Mayan language. And there's a lot that we don't know about the Central and South American language. We simply have no idea what a lot of it means. And so we see we're just strangers. All those civilizations started out, they grew, they progressed, and they fell. Make no mistake about it, we are destined to do just that ourselves. We're not going to last forever. Civilizations rise and civilizations fall, and the only one who knows all about them is God. We're just passing through. And we all stand before God. I believe it's Hebrews 9:27. It's appointed for man to die once, then judgment. We will stand before God. James says in James chapter 4:14 that our lives is just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. The other day, well, in fact, yesterday, Saturday, it was foggy outside here. And it was kind of a thick fog. But you know what? It vanished. And when it vanished, you couldn't tell that it had even been foggy. There was no evidence of the fog anywhere. You couldn't walk outside and look at the grass and say, oh, it was foggy. And you couldn't look at the sidewalk and say, well, the fog was here. No, you couldn't. It was here, and for a little while you had to deal with it if you was driving, but it vanished and it left no trace. James says that's the way we are. The psalmist says that we should long for God's ordinances like two romantic lovers separated for a long time. We should have that desire to be with God in His Word. You know, people that's in love used to write letters, love letters. And my grandpa wrote my grandma love letters, and she saved them all. And he had a little house of memories. And if you went out there and he was out there, he would tell you all about his house of memories, everything that was out there. He could just about tell you everything that he had and where he got it or who he got it from. And you came across those letters and you might ask him, who wrote these? Oh, I did, to your grandma. And she kept them. We should be that way with God and His Word. We should long to be with Him. We should take care that we do not become arrogant. James tells us that God opposes the proud, James 4:6. But it is only when we submit to God that we can resist the devil and draw near to God so that He can draw near to us, James 4:7. You see, too many times when we say, quote James 4:7, we all say, resist the devil and he will flee, and that is true. But how are we going to resist the devil if we fail to submit to God first? How are we going to draw near to God and He draw near to us if we're too busy doing what we want to do? If Tim Williams puts his desires before God's will, how am I going to say that I'm drawing near to God? Or how am I going to say I can feel God in my life? Or how am I going to tell someone what God has done for me if I don't think God has really done anything for me? Because I've never submitted to Him. And we won't submit if we're arrogant. If we're arrogant, we will have the attitude that I don't need God. And you know where we're at in our society today? We're close to saying that we don't need God. I wonder if He is fixing to oppose us. Or is He already? That could be a good study, huh? Is God opposing us already because we're so proud that we say that we don't need God, that there is no God, and we can prove that there's no God? Or is there still hope for us in humbling ourselves and submitting ourselves to God so that He can draw near to us as we draw near to Him? A child of God must strive to live a godly life. I know that kind of sounds redundant, but it's true, isn't it? It's something that we need to do. A child of God must strive to live a godly life so that those who will speak ill of us may be silenced. Titus 2:7-8. Show yourself in all respects to be a model of good works, and in your teaching show integrity, dignity, and sound speech that cannot be condemned, so that your opponent may be put to shame, having nothing evil to say about us. Have you ever been talked about? Have you ever been the target of someone, well, for lack of a better word, hatred? Maybe they just don't really hate, but maybe they just despise you somehow. Maybe they just kind of look at you and say, I wish I had something on him or her. Maybe you're too good looking, or maybe you just was the right person at the right time, and you got something that they was expecting, and they kind of just, from then on, just kind of despised you. And so maybe they start talking ill of you, spreading lies, spreading falsehood. And they're going to get some people that's going to believe that. There's no doubt about that. There's always people, no matter who you are, if someone comes up and starts speaking ill of you, that's going to say, oh, I agree with you. I don't like her, or I don't like him. But there's no reason why we should be that target by helping them out. Paul says that we must show dignity and integrity, to have sound speech. That sound speech is including using helpful words or helpful language. Even if we have something bad to say about someone, we're not going to use bad words.